Hi guys, welcome to Pixel Affair. It's Kobe here, and in today's video, we are going to talk about how I did this opening graphics for Ghana Football Awards 2022. So this video was actually inspired by um, this board game that we've been playing when we were a kid. And I mean, there are several football board games like, the design and the shape. But this one was purely inspired by the ones that we play as a kid, as a Ghanaian kid on the street. So I actually saw this image when I was looking for ideas to do this. I saw this image of kids playing this, and I remember like when I was a kid, the way we used to play all this. So like even the shape of the whole thing was sort of model based on this particular picture board game that we played on the street as kids and everything, right? So this is where the idea started from. But then if I come into the scene, so this is After Effect open, and you can see we have several scenes. So we have scene 1, scene 2 with the balls and everything. So you can see we have several scenes. So this one, couple of them. So this is the first scene where it gets close to where you can see a coin is entering, because in the streets you have to slot in a coin, then you can pull this actually bar for the balls to come, then now you can start playing, right? So that's how it starts. It gets in, and this another cut, this another cut, have another cut. So we are going to go into Cinema 4D and break down how I literally did everything. So I'll first of all talk about how I created these players, the players itself, and how I cloned them to make them online and stuff like that. And after that, I'll talk about break down the board itself, like how everything was formed. And it's very, very simple Cinema 4D, basic Cinema 4D shapes that I used. So let's actually go into Cinema 4D and break down how everything was done, right? Okay. So now I'm in Cinema 4D, and I'm actually using Cinema 4D R25. But everything I did here can be done literally in almost every Cinema 4D software, like previous and upcoming ones, because it's quite simple stuff that I did in here. So this is the first scene where you can see it's zooming, getting close to where the coin is entering. Then if I move to the next scene, this is where you can see it's entering, like the balls are coming out, after this thing is being pulled. And I think it was this same thing that I used to zoom to this part where the ball is being thrown in. And the next one is, I think, where the ball is coming in, like that, goes to the next. They are rotating, like about to hit, and it cuts to this particular scene, which I think, so this is the scene where now you see the character hits the ball, and the ball is being hit. It's actually using dynamics, so it's a bit of dynamics blend with a little bit of animation in some cases. So when the character hits the ball, it's actually dynamics that I used because I wanted to see what I can get with dynamics and without animating and all of that. So it's dynamics that I use for the character and everything. So that's basically it. So that's the same process I used in every particular scene itself. So now let's go ahead and break down how I did the ball first. The scene first, like basically the board, the table itself first. Then after that, I'll show how like I basically did the characters or the players itself. And it's like very simple and basic Cinema 4D stuff that I did. Nothing complex. Everything is very basic, and anybody can, if you want to have the basics of Cinema 4D, you should be able to do this. It's very easy. So let me actually get into go into a scene where I have the board only in here, and you can see this is the model of the board, and it's nothing crazy or nothing fancy. It's just a simple Cinema 4D shapes. So let me actually start breaking them down. So in the center here, it's just a normal cube with I think this is a spline which I've cloned, and so that's what I've named center line. So you can see it's just, if I actually solo it, I have this plugin. I use Magic Solo, which is a free plugin from Nitro 4D. So I select this, and if I solo it, you can see it's just a normal sweep on a circle for the and then a normal cube, which I've made it thing like that. So that's basically the center line. So it's nothing complex. Then the next, I actually talk about the sidewall. So if I actually come into the sidewalls, you can see, let me solo it as well. And if I solo it, you can see it's just sidewall, which I've actually cloned it in a not clone it, but put it in a symmetry object. So if I unhide this, where is it? Symmetry. You can see now the symmetry, it's just one object, so it's just a simple rectangle, right? And which I have used taper deformer on it. So now let me actually take off the extrude and now take off the taper. So it's just a normal rectangle object. If I bring the properties here, you can see which I've actually scaled and everything and given it a bit of rounding, and I've used the taper to make it taper in like that, and I've used the extrude to extrude it, and after that I put it in the symmetry, right? And I actually put it in this object because I think I did a bool in it or something. So when where the coin slots enter, I did the boolean in there. Let me actually take off the grid, so I'll go filter and work plane. So I did a little bit of boolean in there with the this particular cube. You can see the cube here. So if I enable the bool, you can see it cutting. So this is where the coin enters, right? So that's what I did, and that's all for the wall itself. It's nothing complex at all, and I'll unsolo that one as well. Then, so basically the same process I used for all of them. And if I come into the goalpost wall itself, so I'll solo that one, and you can see it's the same thing, just normal rectangle that I've actually used the shear deformer, right? So if I take off the shear, you can see normal rectangle that I've extruded, and I've used shear to push it in like that to get the other side, and actually go ahead and do the same thing, put it in the symmetry object as well. The top of the goalpost, the same thing. So solo that one. You can see this also contains normal shapes. So this is let me actually take off this symmetry. So I did one side, put it in a symmetry, and then you can see after that I clone it as well, right? And they are all normal simple shapes. This is spline which I've extruded, and the top of this one is also a spline which I've actually shaped, and I've extruded, and I've put it on top, and I've added this one. And so this being so if I move this one like somewhere here, you can see the symmetry only considers the first child, so this one is not being like duplicated, right? So the top is not being duplicated. That's why it's still in the symmetry object, but it's not being duplicated. So after this one is created, I put it in another symmetry, and I change the axis, right? So in this symmetry, I change the axis to x, z, y. But I can see with this one is x, y, right? So now we created another symmetry on the side, and everything combined basically forms this side, and this one is just a plane. The field is just a plane, which I've actually used a boolean. I've used a boolean to cut the holes here, which is the goalpost in here, using a symmetry, a cube in a symmetry to bool this side to create that goalpost. So that's basically it. The rest is just normal how do you call it, shapes as well for the stand, right? So if I take off the symmetry, you can see it's the same thing, rectangle which I've extruded and putting it in symmetry to create all of the other sides. There nothing complex in here. So this is very basic thing that any Cinema 4D with basic Cinema 4D understanding you should be able to put together. And this is just a normal cube for the down there, and this is where the ball drops. Normal cube, which I've actually used Boolean to cut out the inside. I usually like to leave things procedurally so that when I want to actually do some change, I can simply come in and change it. That's why I don't break everything down. So when I want to come in and change something, I just come in and dial in and use parameters and stuff. If I'll leave it that way. So that's how I actually model the board itself. It's nothing complicated. So let's actually see how I actually did the players themselves. So with the players, let me actually copy one of them from this scene and create a new scene. So I'll copy this one, edit, copy, and I'll create a new scene, right? I can come file, new project, and you'll create a new scene. And then I'll paste it, edit, paste, right? So it's somewhere in here. So this is the players that we have. Let me first go ahead, and you can see I've cloned it. I created one and I cloned it, and all of those things included. So let me bring it out. I'll just select it, hold Control to duplicate it and drag it out. So I've created duplicate outside. So let's first of all hide this one, right? So this is like the player one of it on its own. Let me reset the position, scale, rotation, and everything for it to be in the middle. So this is how one of the players look, and it's quite simple how I created this. So let's go ahead and create one from scratch. So I'll come into my asset manager, and if you are using an older version, you can go into the content browser, and I looked for a male. Is it male? I think male. Yeah. So if you check your asset browser, you see this male nude character, and in the content browser, I'm sure it will be there. So you can search for male, and I'm sure you'll find it. So this is the character I basically used. I don't need everything that it comes with. So all I need is the body. So I'll just drag out the body, and I'll delete the rest, right? So first of all, let me scale it a little big, make it a little bigger, and bring it down, something like that. I think it's cool, right? And all I did was, let me actually first of all delete the material, so I don't need it. And let's hide our object, the one that we've already made. So I want to delete the excess part that I don't need. So the hands, the legs, and everything, I want it deleted. So all I did was to come to polygon mode, and I'll hit UL, which is loop selection. If I come to my selection, you can see you have loop selection. So I hit UL, and I'll select let's say this part, and I'll come here as well, and I'll select, hold shift, and I'll select this part, right? And I'll just delete them. So after that, all I have to, in fact, let me actually add this part to it. So I can also select this part as well. Yeah, and I'll delete it. So all I have to do is, after this, I'll make sure I select any polygon of all of these, right? In all of the places I want to delete, the hands and the leg, and all I have to do is to UW, and that's basically anything that's connected to the polygons I've selected. It will select them all. So now if I hit delete, you can see it deletes all of them, and just this part that I want, right? The next thing is for here, I'll just go to fill selection, close polygon hole actually. So maybe I right click, close polygon hole, and I can close this. It shouldn't be perfect anyway, it can be anyhow. I close this part, and then down here I'll probably bring the move tool, and I'll make sure it's set to edges. Select all of this and start moving it down. Bring the scale tool and scale it to it's all 0, something like that. And I'll bring back the move tool, move it down, make sure it's going, move it down, scale it a little bit, and maybe use the knife tool to create some loop in here, right? So that we can continue. Then I'll bring the move tool and move it down again. I mean, this is basically how I did it, so you can play around with it. I mean, It's not nothing complicated. So let's say we are cool with it, how it looks, right? All I have to, the next I did was to close the down here, bottom here as well. So right click, close polygon hole, I think, which is MD, the shortcut. So I'll close this as well. So that's what I want. The next thing I'm going to do is to put it in a volume builder. So I'll create a volume builder. I'll put the body in the volume builder, right? And I'll reduce the volume builder to like say 1. Yeah. And we are cool. I'll add maybe smoothness to it, so that's, but the smoothness is too much. So I'll reduce the smoothness in here with the SDF smooth. I'll reduce it to like say maybe 20 will be fine. All right. The next is where it uses to hit. So I'll create a normal cube. I'll make it a little bit smaller. Bring it down somewhere here. So it's just basic stuff, SIMA 4D stuff. You don't need anything complicated. Just look at use the normal SIMA 4D2, because I couldn't model like this whole thing, because we don't need all the details and everything that it comes with it. So let's assume this is the shape of our the size of the legs that it will use to hit. Like, we are cool with it, right? All we have to do is to drop into the volume builder. So I'll bring it into the volume builder. Select cube. Make sure it's drop it in the volume builder, and automatically it will add it in here. But I want it under the smooth, so that the smooth affects it, right? So that's how I created the leg. And so all I have to do is to make it editable. C KL to bring the knife to, and I'll cut it somewhere here. Hit escape. Then I'll bring the move to and select one of the edges down that I've created. Then I'll pull it down to give me that shape, this particular shape. I'm actually not doing everything accurately. I just want to give you a fair idea of how things were created. The next is I can actually, so for instance, if I bring back the one I've created, you can see there is this hole in the hand in here, and that one was simply done using like a cylinder. So I'll create a cylinder. I'll change the axis to X, and I'll reduce the size somewhere here. All right, maybe I'll make the size, let's say 15, and bring it somewhere in here. Let's assume this is fine. All you have to do is again add it to the volume builder, and you can see it's adding to it. But if you come down into the volume builder in here, you have mode. The mode is set to union. You can just simply say subtract. You can see now it's subtracting our cylinder from our object. We can reduce the size of the cylinder a bit and increase the rotation segment so that the cut will be a bit smoother. And then let's also make sure the SDF smooth is on top. And yeah, we play around with the cylinder, the radius of the cylinder, maybe 10. Move it back. So that's basically how I created my the object. So the remaining after that, I'll add it to volume measure, make it a child of the volume mesh. And now if we check, you can see we have a very dense mesh. So if I come to display and change the mood to garage shading, you can see the mesh is very dense. So we can simply use a remesher, right? And if you are using SIMA 4D R26, like, there's even a better algorithm from ZBrush that makes it even more accurate and quality polygons. But in here with R25, you have the remesher as well, right? So all you can do is to, even if you don't have a remesher, within the volume measure itself, you can actually increase the adaptive the adaptive here. You can see it reduced the polygon. It's not neat though, but for what you are doing, it wouldn't be too much of a big deal, because you don't need any UVs. You are all just going to add a straight color, a straight material and everything. So sometimes you can get away with it. But if you don't want to do that, or you can simply come into the object and look for remesh actually, and then make the volume measure a child of the remesh, and it will take some time to calculate. After that, you reduce it to, like, let's say, it will take a bit of time to calculate. Let's wait for it to finish. And you can see now, after the remesh, you see it has a lot of, it's very dense, but you can simply reduce it to, like, say, 5%. Just want it reduced completely, and you can see we have our mesh as low poly as we want, and we can get away with it with what we are doing, right? Because we don't need anything complicated. So that's basically how I created the players themselves. Right, let me change the shade to garage shading. Right, so now I don't necessarily need this. Okay, let me hide it because I don't need it. Let me clear the volume mesh because all of that, I don't need all of this. So now, after that one it was created, the next thing was to do the obvious, clone them the number of times I want it. So let me actually bring back this particular one, and you can see all I have here is a cylinder. I'm actually a tube, right? And with the symmetry are these ties that are at the end of the player, and this also a tube, right? And now I just put it in a clone, so I've cloned them. You can see it's 3 players. So if I select it and increase it, you can see you can create the number of players you want. So all I've done, that's basically it, and that's how I created my players as well. And with the handle here, it's also just a spline which I've put in the late object. Is it late? Let me actually check the name as well. Yeah, I think late. So it's just a spline that I drew, and I've put in the. If I disable, you can see it's just a normal spline, right? That I created, just drew it, and now the late will make it round like that, and I put it in the late, and you can see how it works. So with the lathe, for instance, with the lathe, how it works and everything, I have a tutorial in here which you can actually check out for it. Also with the other deformers for like the extrude, basically all my 4D generators, I have tutorial in on here on YouTube, which you can actually look out for it, how they all operate and all of them work. So if anything, and the deformers as well, so if anything, you can check how they work, and it can also guide you if like you don't get certain things. So that's basically how I created the whole players and everything. Then after that, I brought it into the board, and so if where I want 5 players, I make sure it's 5 players, and where I want like 1 player, 2 player, 4 players, that's basically how everything was created. So this was quite simple. So next was to add materials and light in the scene, and with the lights, all I used was one dome light and a couple of area lights. So the main light was the dome light. So let me actually, and I used redshift to render. So let me actually bring the redshift render view, and you can see this is my my scene. Let's actually for now take off the materials. We don't want it, so I want us to see how the light looks without the material. So I'll change the view, and you can see it's nothing over the top, because I wanted a little bit of dark scene, but not all that dark. You can see everything clear, but it's not like as bright as you want it. And the next was, okay, so for instance, let me actually take off the other lights that we have in the scene, and let me bring it down so that you have them here. So I'll take off these 2 lights. You can see it doesn't change much. So the main light was the dome light, right? If I hide the dome light and bring this area light, you can see what this area light is doing is that it's just sort of giving a bit of highlight and giving us a bit of hard shadows, because if I select this area light and come to its attributes, you can see the spread. I've actually reduced it to like 0.1. So the shadows are it's not like extremely soft, it's a bit like hard. It's not like, it's quite a bit sharp than the area light shadow, because the area light, because it's a very huge light, and while it gives us like very, very soft shadows, right? So if I hide this and bring this particular light as well, this one is sort of, it was a light basically for, I think it was for the ball or something like that, something to add a little bit of reflection to the ball, so it doesn't contribute much to the scene as well. So the main light for the scene was this dome lights, and it's nothing um, crazy. It's something simple that I added. Right now, with the materials I used is the Grayscale Gorilla Everyday material collection. Right, that's what I use for the board. So for the wood, for this particular wood, I use, let me actually open it. I use this D wood material. Let me, for now, put this one somewhere here so that I open the materials for us to see. So if I let me save the scene for now. If I double click to open the D wood material, you can see it's this yellow material that I used, and like the color scheme I wanted to use was red, yellow, green, which is the Ghana color, right? So I use basically this material and I just apply. So for instance, if I select this one and come the side walls, and you see the material I've applied, and it's nothing, it's, I just applied it and put the projection is set to cubic, so it's nothing complicated, the usual way that you apply materials to your Cinema 4D object, right? And I don't think I did anything to this particular one, but it's the same. So the other colors, you can see I have yellow and this is the red. You can see we have, this is the red one, and if I select, you have the green. And the difference in that is all I used with the red and the green, that was I actually piped the texture. So the texture itself, it's yellow, right? So this is it, it's yellow, but then I actually use a redshift color correct, and I change the how do you call it, I changed the hue, the hue shift value, right? So that, so when I played around with it, I got this red looking color, and I kept it as the color I want. I think I did the same thing for the okay. So with the green one, I use a different technique, which is I use the RS ramp. So with the ramp, what it converts whatever color you pipe through it into Grayscale Gorilla. Then now you can control it. So you can see it's yellow, and when you pipe it through the RS ramp and it's set to auto or alt, basically what it does is that it converts the material into a grayscale color, which is right, black and white. That's how the default is now. So all the white value, now I changed it into green, and that's how come I got this green. It wasn't anything complicated. So that's the same thing I used for the green colors as well. And then with the handles, it's the same. I used the everyday material, one of the wood shaders, and I just applied it with let me check. I just applied it, and the same thing, cubic. So I didn't do anything fancy. Everything was basic shapes and basic, Cinema 4D stuff. Nothing complicated in here, right? And now if I bring back the render again, the render view, and hit play, you can see. So the top here was the red one, the red part, and the whole board, like the remaining was yellow, and the other side, which is this side, so that's where the green is, right? And that's basically the colors of Ghana. And then I think with the board, the main board, I think it's one of the textures from the everyday material collection as well. So it was nothing fancy, just wooden textures I used, and it's, you can actually get something on the net as well to use it, but in this case that's not what I used. A Grayscale Gorilla everyday material collection. And then with the gold materials as well, I think I did the same thing. They were ones I picked from the Grayscale Gorilla material everyday material collection as well for the gold and the other ones. Let me actually go into it. Where is it? I think, yeah, so I think this is it. I've selected it, so I think, yeah, this is the gold. If I open it, I see it's one of the everyday material, which is bronze, but I actually touched it a bit to get this gold, and I use the same thing for the silver as well. So that's basically about the materials and the lighting. It wasn't anything, just one dome light, and then I went on to throw the Grayscale Gorilla everyday material collection on it, and then that's um how we got our scene. And using Redshift, I was able to render the whole thing. That's basically how I lit the scene. So everything I think is explained now. For her, I've remembered. So this light was actually to light this particular part of the scene where the balls were coming, right? So it's just the whole scene was like just two lights, this one and the dome light. But this particular light was for the balls cube box, right? That's where this light was meant for. I remember now. So yeah, that's basically the whole scene and how the light and everything was planned. So it's quite simple basic cinema 4D stuff that I applied. So for this video not to be very long and too long, I'll actually break it into the next two scenes. So I think in the next part, which I think is going to be shorter, I'm going to talk about how I actually sort of animated the playing the balls and everything, and how I played with dynamics along with keyframes and stuff to get the kind of animation I want. And after that, we'll see how we actually took it into After Effects to composite it and combine everything together. So it's not going to be anything long, but I mean, I don't want to add this to this one for it to be very long. So after this, please kindly watch the part 2. And if there's a bit more interest in the scene and I get like a lot of people who are interested in the project and everything, I probably wouldn't mind adding creating a link and giving out the project scene, I mean the model of the board itself. I wouldn't mind giving it away. It's not anything complicated, so I can just give it away if like a lot of people show interest. But kindly subscribe to the channel, like and share and comment, give me feedback in anything, and I'll be glad whatever you say. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part of this video.